county. And from that event, we actually had come up with these questions, and it was about, I guess, minutes or so session, and we only had 3 people answering, but we filled all that time, and we actually went overtime. It was supposed to be 40 minutes, and it was more than an hour. We unfortunately didn't have the logistical platform that would allow us to record that session properly. We tried live streaming, just like we're trying to do today. Didn't work out. But so this is why we wanted to do it again. I invited all the same people back, but they weren't able to do this again. The other issue being that they are rural, in a rural location, and the internet connection there is actually rather poor. So they were feeling that they probably wouldn't be able to do it from their location properly and just have a nice, smooth connection. So I guess now for 15 minutes or so, I will actually give the introductory statement or
okay,
for why we're doing this event. So we could mute everybody else,
yeah,
just to make sure that we don't have other distractions.
yeah.
Then we're seeing Ed has just come in. That's great. And to have more people join us as we move forward. So Andrew, are you able to?
Yeah,
I'm recording now. The ball's in your court. Yes, I'm muting now.
You're going to be muting everybody else as well. Be able to do that? Right now to review. Go. So.
oh, how come I cannot hear you?
Lord,
you
have
muted
to
me
unmute
as
yourself.
well. Yeah.
Mute all means mute all. Sorry about that.
No problem. So, yeah. So the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors, Glocalizing Homelessness, Hunger and Health Solutions. So this is our first kind of event that we've actually done through Drawdown Markham, collaborating with We Energize Global Cooperation, Turtle Island. And so we are now doing this event. So I'm going to be trying to see if I can arrange my desktop so that I can look like it's moving us in the right direction and not too difficult for everybody to hear. So a reminder as well that this is United Nations Day. And the context for our event today is actually these global attempts now happening in communities around the world, like in the United States, including in Los Angeles, in places like Bermuda, in New Zealand, in Southeast Asia, in Africa, in the Middle East, to create these new so-called regenerative solutions to produce food that is considered to be climate smart, such that through the process of producing and consuming these foods, and in dealing with the related waste streams that result from the production and consumption of these foods, that people in communities all over the world will be able to create a new category of food that goes beyond organic and considered to be climate smart, because the production and consumption of the food results in what Paul Hawken has coined as drawdown. So in other words, the peaking and then the eventual reversal of human-produced carbon emissions like CO2, like methane, nitrous oxide, so that humanity might then be able to eventually reverse global warming and perhaps even begin to turn back the clock on the disastrous effects of climate change. especially as it relates to the current food production systems and the paradigm we're in, most of which is entirely dependent on reliable and predictable climate and weather patterns, and especially vulnerable to natural disasters and extreme events like droughts, like floods, and storms, and fire events. The wildfires now that are currently affecting places like Colorado and California, and which have previously affected countries like Australia on a massive scale, and which now recognize as probably only the early indicators of even more extreme events to come over the next few years and decades. Well, of course, it's well understood that climate change affects our existing agricultural systems in many ways and threatens to cause significant decreases in crop yields. Climate change impacts food production through crop yield changes, typically from temperature increases and rainfall variability. The general rule of thumb being that in equatorial tropics, for every 1 degree rise there's an associated 10% drop in crop yields. So the FAO is actually saying that climate change will affect all 4 dimensions of food security. So availability, accessibility, utilization, and of course, price stability. It will also have an impact on human health, livelihoods, on food production and distribution channels, and even on the purchasing power and market flows of the existing system. So many crop yields, of course, are also predicted to decline because of the combined effects of changes in rainfall, severe weather events, increasing competition from weeds and pests on these open air crop plants. So in addition to these direct effects on yields, this common growth, climate change can alter the frequency and the adequacy of macronutrients, and carbohydrates, and protein. So recent work being shown that access to these diverse and nutrient-dense food sources, especially in low-income countries, is a priority that needs to be improved to create what they call sustainable nutrition. Of course, climate change also increases the effects of infectious diseases, pollution, and more. Even the Centers for Disease Control in the US says, of course, they're very busy right now with a certain deadly virus, but climate change, and this is their words, is expected to threaten not only food production through lower quantities and certain aspects of food quality, lower nutrition, it will also affect within food distribution paradigm and systems. So according to the World Economic Forum, agriculture must adapt to reduce emissions and ensure sustainability, but must also grow enough food to feed, of course, an increasing global population. Over nearly 1 billion people are hungry today, with yields set to drop at least 20% in some areas as a result of climate change. So we really need action urgently. So we actually find ourselves at a crossroads in history where we must begin the process of rapidly transforming and transitioning our global food systems, one community at a time. So this is a process that the ad hoc Youth for SDGs, Tourism for SDG International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors calls glocalization, or localizing the Sustainable Development Goals. So we must begin in earnest to address how local issues relate to food security, but do it in a way that's holistic. So it takes into consideration all of the other things that help to make our communities so dynamic, such as local geography, sunlight, energy, heat flows, water flows, the existing infrastructure, business ecosystems already in place, those that are being nurtured by people in the local community. Many local, cultural, institutional, governance consideration of the local community, the status of these relationships with other nearby or distant institutions and communities, and including other levels of government. So the level of existing skills needs to be taken into consideration. So their capacity to do further education, training of the local people, especially as well as the money flows and allocations that exist within any given community. So those who are participating in this webinar today thus need to take into consideration those many factors as we move our food systems toward one that is more sustainable, more earth-friendly, more human-friendly, more equitable for all people, and not only in our own community, but also in every community, in every country, on every continent of this planet we call Earth, and leaving no one behind. So the worldwide UN Global Compact Localizing the SDG campaign has now begun, and we're moving into high gear through our C4 group, our collaborative effort. Here in the Greater Toronto Area, our Science for Peace Community Sustainability Working Group, Drawdown Markham, through our Community Climate Action Hub, has been working with our partners through the Collaborative Exchange Program, working in partnership with the various members and partners of the Energon Global Cooperation Turtle Island, civil society organization, organizing a program that we've called our Collaborative Tree Planting Program, which is intended actually to create and support an ecosystem of worldwide open source, regenerative, climate smart community infrastructure solutions that will in turn support adaptable community-based food production that's considered to be climate smart. These climate smart solutions can be measured, they can be verified, they can be certified as being able to achieve that achieving drawdown at the local level. So they can be implemented by local humanitarian entrepreneurs and businesses who are working together in communities to achieve a set of common goals in a way that ensures that we can maximize our health outcomes, our income opportunities, our social advancement, and hopefully through better inclusion, reducing inequalities, and ensuring the overall well-being of our local cities, our towns, villages, communities, neighborhoods, even our homes. Improve that, again, leaving no one behind. So, of course, rebuilding our global food system, as we say, glocalizing the food system, is likely to be the greatest challenge of the 21st century. It must be done within the context of climate change, inequality, economic woes, joblessness, as well as this new crisis called COVID-19, and where communities across the country, the continent, and around the world also face a continuing housing affordability crisis. And in some places, natural disasters. That is actually straining the ability of local actors to address health, food security, and homelessness all at the same time, and using sort of the existing local resources. So for instance, in 2018, after declining almost a decade, the number of people experiencing homelessness in the United States increased for the second year in a row and is now, of course, skyrocketing. So the US states with the highest rates of homelessness are Hawaii, California, Oregon, and Washington State. And interestingly enough, the last three are also the states that are experiencing the worst climate change-induced forest fires right now. So the massive forest fires that are still wreaking havoc in Colorado and California, and the Northern California coastal fire that recently became the largest fire in California, and of course now in Colorado history as well, eclipsing the Mendocino fire of 2018, are indication that something is seriously wrong. So more than 700 firefighters that are battling the East Troublesome Fire and the Cameron Peak Fire today, which has already burned an area larger than the city of Chicago, will likely tell you that today's situation is not normal. Even the electricity utility is contemplating cutting power to over 1 million people tomorrow in order to prevent the chance of sparking wildfires as extreme fire weather returns to the region. So in Canada, even though we do not have these types of extreme weather events as frequently, we do have cold weather, especially at this time of the year as they approach winter months. And the trends and issues in affordable housing and homelessness are not much better than south of the border. So according to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Homeless Hub, which focuses on trends related to housing and homelessness in 22 large and medium-sized municipalities in urban regions of Canada, 2 decades there's been a staggering decline in funding to create affordable housing, and also in providing support to those in need. such costs have been placed on the lower levels of government who can't afford it. And of course, given an aging population, underemployment and unemployment, with few rental options, finding adequate and affordable housing is becoming actually more and more difficult, as many people living in the country will attest. Thus, the topic today is about how we can potentially address three fundamental issues that are related to our own personal well-being: housing, food security, and health. And tying these issues and relating them actually to the various efforts that are being made around achieving these long-term climate security goals and the long-term well-being of all members of society. So we believe that the solutions come by taking action at the local level, within our own communities, and by working with our friends, our family, our neighbors, to find workable and economically that can help to achieve all of the goals that we'd like to achieve, namely these local implementation of the SDGs for everyone, not only in our own communities, but for everyone everywhere on Earth. Because when we apply the golden rule to all of our relationships and treat others as we hope that we will be treated, and make a personal decision to collaborate instead of only competing for resources, whether it's money, property, or even food. And when we start to build an economy whose life, more than the token money that is really only used to provide a measure of relative value for transactions, and we realize that the size of an economy is only a measure of the velocity of these human-to-human fiat currency transactions that are being made within a given society. But have actually little or no bearing on actual human well-being. We can begin to change how we relate not only to other people, but to the planet itself. It benefits all of us over our own lifetimes and over those of our children. So this was my introduction to this event. We now have a series of questions and discussions that we would like to have related to these topics. But maybe first what I will try to do is I will share my desktop and play some videos that I was just sent early this morning by one of my colleagues who is also trying to set up a business to help restaurants through this crisis right now. So give me a minute to see if I could share my screen and do this. Share. Good. Here we go. Andrew, could you get a thumbs up that this is actually showing properly?
I'm waiting for it to show on my side. It might be faster on someone else's. I have a slow connection. There it comes.
Okay. I'll start from the beginning again. It started automatically playing. Okay, is it something we can see?
Trying to unmute myself. Yes, it's beginning to show now. It was frozen, but now it's starting to play. I don't hear it. I don't hear it though, but I do see Angela.
I'm just about to play right now.
To now hear the sound. We see someone, that's your wife, speaking, but no sound.
There's no sound? Okay,
No
I'm not
sound.
sure how to share the sound then. This is Active speaker.
Maybe you can keep playing, because if you stop, then there'll be no sound. Keep playing until and then just until you get the sound.
Okay. Sure.
Oh. No. Who is this? Is she your wife? Yeah. Very slow.
So are people able to hear this
Yeah,
video?
Aubrey, that was a
No, we
Oh,
cannot hear
oh.
the, what this lady is speaking. We can hear you, no, with no
Okay.
problem.
Okay, so it seems that it wouldn't be very useful to actually play this video if there's no sound. Perhaps since we do have the videos, we can share them later. We'll integrate it into the final edit of this webinar. Hopefully, then as we move forward with this event.
Oh, I can see
Addition from
Celine
this morning.
is here.
So
Celine
I'm
is
gonna.
here.
I'm sure how to stop sharing my screen.
So you
I've never
see,
used this before.
my platform is better. Hey.
No, I just never used it before, so I
Yeah.
don't know what's going on. Drew,
See?
how do we stop
Hello.
this?
How do you stop? Yeah. See, on my platform, you just click your own
Stop
window.
sharing. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I just need to know which button to press because I didn't see
Yeah.
everything is
Okay.
disappearing. Okay, so let's move forward here. The thing I wanted to ask all participants, Miriam and Salim as well on the line with us, which is great. So there are a number
thank you
of
so
questions.
much. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Miriam. So as I indicated, there are a number of questions. So the first question we had for all people, actually all delegates who are here today with us, why do you have an interest in the issues of homelessness in relation to the other topics of discussion today? So obviously hunger and health being two other questions, two other main issues and topics. So perhaps we can actually start with Miriam, since she's the last one that spoke. So if you just unmute yourself, and we'll have you.
Good evening from my side.
Good
evening from Pakistan. So, can you listen me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So I don't know very much about this event, but because I registered myself with this and I got the invitation on my email, so that's why I joined this. This is about the SDGs 1, 2, and 3. And my organization is Community Development Foundation, which is also working on specific SDGs here in Pakistan. Currently we joined this organization with the SAMS Tukul MA global company with Dr. Mufaddal Mirza. And nowadays we are, in a process of planning and preparation with the set projects from our side in the collaboration. and we are in process of connecting our universities with this program. We are connecting our farmers, small farmers, with this program, and we are also focusing on grassroots for enrollment of the mothers program overall. So this is the short introduction. Community Development Foundation is specifically working on women economic empowerment, and we are focused on trainings and capacity building. We are focusing on training and capacity building through IT and ICTs also. And through these programs, we are creating different ventures, and especially in terms of small businesses and economic growth for the women. And these all collective SDGs are focused for the economic growth towards from the females and for the grassroots. So thank you so much from my side.
Good. Thank you very much, Miriam. Actually, that also answers parts of question number 2, which is, could you explain to us what you've been doing and what areas of homelessness and other related issues that you've been involved with? So actually, maybe what we can do is just go around round robin here and switch over to Ed and have him himself and what his interest is in this particular webinar. So Miriam, maybe you could also mute yourself.
As you are asking question from me?
No, I'm trying to go just around. So if you could mute yourself, Miriam, and then we can unmute yourself, Ed.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good morning to everyone. I'm not sure if it's out there. So I'm Ed. I am from Philippines. I'm in Quezon City, which is in Metro Manila. What I'm really interested, okay, I'm looking at the first question. I should tell you more a little bit about myself. So I am a member of an informal group called Caris Maria Missionaries. It's a religious group, and it started focusing on the religious side of homeless people. I am also a member of a formal group called TSI Hope Builders. TSI stands of Social Innovation. So with TSI, we are now looking at the material side, the material needs of the homeless. So Caris Maria on the spiritual side, TSI on the material side. Are informal organizations. In other words, it's not a registered thing with any government agency. So it's more of a group of friends working together to help the homeless. And why are we interested in the homeless right now? Okay, in Manila, in the area where we live, we are surrounded by people. And as we have observed over the years, the problem is growing. It has become a cycle. In other words, a homeless couple, have children. Their children become homeless afterwards, and the cycle repeats. And the product of this is hunger and illness. So they are all interconnected, and it has become a major problem of the society. And I think the major problem right now here, I'm not sure in other areas, people have become insensitive to this problem. Many people look at it as a mundane thing, something ordinary, something that just exists, and they ignore it. So I think we need to create awareness about this problem so that people can start helping. We can trigger their we can make them feel the need to love these people and help these people. Philippines is a large Christian country, and I think we have to capitalize on that Christian values that are in the people, and we have to open up their hearts to help the homeless. Right now, our main interaction is we have this food and medicine distribution, and on the streets we do regular praise and worship sessions on the street. I would bring my guitar, gather the children and their parents. We sing together, we pray together. Then after that, we deliver food to them. We were doing that before the pandemic came, but right now everything has stopped because of that pandemic. So another problem that we have seen is the lack of jobs for the people. We need to help them stand on their own feet. So we try to connect them to job opportunities, usually because many of them are not skilled. So we connect them to construction industry where labor is intensive. One of the things that we are really pushing forward as a first is acceptance. These people suffer rejection every day. They are sent away, they are shouted upon. Nobody wants to go near them. In fact, I told many people, hey, long before this pandemic came, there is all such thing as social distancing, but we never call that social distancing. People distance themselves from the homeless because they are dirty, they don't look well, they look sick and everything. So I think the first thing that we are trying to do here, especially in our area, is to create awareness so that these people become accepted by the community. We want to remove that rejection problem.
Okay, well, thank you, Ed. Maybe
Yes.
I think that's good for an introduction at this point in time, and maybe we can pass the baton over to Mr. Salim Talbot, so he can give us some of his own insights and interests as well. So if Ed could mute yourself, and then Salim, if you could unmute yourself. Salim, can you hear us? Okay, it sounds like Salim is not responding. I'm not sure. Perhaps we can then move to Andre.
Hi, I'm Andre. I'm part of Drawdown Markham with Wolf. And my interest in the homelessness issue is first, it seems like it should have been a no-brainer issue that this shouldn't exist because it seems like the most simple, basic thing that as a society we should be able to provide for people. But it seems that, the further I've dug into it, you see that there's all these obstacles to homelessness, causes to homelessness, and they're quite often self-inflicted by our society, by the systems that we have, by people. You can get into all the various issues, but I think one of the main issues is we don't have adequate supply of housing. adequate supply doesn't mean everyone necessarily gets an apartment building or a condo, but some people need appropriate housing. And, you know, what is appropriate housing? I don't think we really find what is appropriate. In some cases, a rooming house with shared facilities, that may be appropriate for some people. And the other part of it is, you know, when I heard about the issue of homelessness, I'm like, why does this exist, and why is it such a large scale where you have a lot of money and resources being directed towards helping and solving this issue, but it seems that the motivation is more to manage the problem, and also because there's not enough supply, the people in the homelessness industry, they don't actually have the ability to create new supply. That's not within their scope of their job, so they're not able to do it. So they have these silos not working well with each other. I mean, a lot of the times to create affordable housing, what happens is the people in the homelessness work with developers to say, I'll get you a break on this development if you allocate certain units to affordable housing. And then you have some people that, in my opinion, get overhoused, but need to win the lottery to get into that housing. And then there's so many other people that are left out in the cold. And, you know, with the climate change, and you see all these global refugees or climate refugees that, you know, are probably going to happen. If we can't solve this issue of homelessness, when it gets ramped up to that scale, it's going to be pretty bad. So if we can find a solution to homelessness, an effective, efficient solution, we can hopefully scale that up and, hopefully learn how to build back better as a society, but also how to deal with the impending climate refugees.
Yeah, thank you, Andre. Perhaps I don't know if Salim wants to say anything at all, or is able to unmute himself. But if not, then perhaps we can actually get some words from Andrew Williams Jr. on his situation in Los Angeles with the 5 Point Youth Foundation.
If I can find out how to unmute myself, probably I can help. Yes, the 5 Point Youth Foundation, we're located at of a more famous intersection. We're located at the corner of Florence and Western. In 1992, the world knew where Normandy and Florence were, because that's where Reginald unfortunately was dragged from his truck and hit in the head with a brick because of the Los Angeles riots resulting from the Rodney King trial. Specifically, I'm 5 Points Youth Foundation, but the founder is someone I very much respect. Her name is Diane Watson. She actually founded the organization in 1984, right after the Olympics, in order to provide, at that time it was called the Diane Watson Semi-Pro Sports Authority. That was to provide the people that were in poverty or disadvantaged, particularly the youth, with a pathway out of poverty into a more normal, stable life. The name was changed to 5 Points Youth Foundation in 1991 after she moved on. And in 2012, the directors decided to move their site into this area to address the same issues that we're faced with here. So when I was elected president in 2015, I first decided that I would actually make a commitment to the United Nations Global Compact, because the issues that we were faced here in South Los Angeles were very similar to other parts of the country, particularly those areas where there was a high number or high proportion of people of African descent. And of course, that's very personal for me. But it's not just in the United States, it's global. Now, I have a particular viewpoint on frankly, I believe that we're all people of African descent, right? So whatever solution that we could find for the people at the lowest level, when we leave no one behind, it actually uplifts everyone. But moving specifically to what we're dealing with now, from a 5 Points Youth Foundation, I'm very pleased to have you, Lloyd, as one of our members of our ad hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors. We launched that last year in 2019 to move beyond just conversation. In 2015, we had a 5-year plan called Caring for Climate. I think Richard Nelson might be joining us soon. He was one of those people that was there at the very beginning. We wanted to build a worldwide community resiliency network, raising awareness about the United Nations Global Compact as a way where civil society could become engaged and get a seat at the table with world powers and not just be an item on the menu, so to speak. We were very successful. We recruited over 100 Goodwill ambassadors around the world. But for this next push from 2020 to 2030, a decade of action on the SDGs, we decided we would actually take a step further. And we would attempt to double the number of the membership by adding another 10,000 civil society members to balance and hold accountable those major multinational corporations that make up this largest corporate social responsibility organization in the world. So specifically, there are those of us from that larger group, like Luis Cruz Diaz and yourself and others, that decided, well, look, there are going to be trillions of dollars that have to be spent to address these issues all over the world. So we need to find and identify solutions locally and then share them globally, and find global solutions and source them locally. Part of the way we're doing that is through technology. This is one means, both the Zoom that we're forced to use now more so because of the pandemic, and also technologies like live streaming. But many of us now are forced to use our phones for much more than just making calls. It's actually a computer. It's actually a video. It's actually a camera. So, one of our Goodwill ambassadors, Lady Alicia Hamilton, who's helped sponsor this platform we have here now, TRN, is actually empowering consumers to become producers of content. So, Lloyd, what we're hoping to do is we're hoping to really engage people around the world and share with them knowledge and information, help them wherever they are to uplift us all beyond the challenges that we face. In general, that's an answer to the question.
Thank you very much, Andrew. We'll see if we can get back to, actually, has actually just joined us as well. But I want to hear maybe a few words from Aubrey as well in Vancouver area.
Yay, Vancouver, well, Kelowna to be exact. Yeah, hello. How come I hear some echo sound?
You're good, Aubrey.
I'm okay? Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Talking about the hunger and homeless, I think we should look at the whole picture. If you study the Bible, the Bible talk about Jubilee. I think the Jubilee principle applies to what we are now. The situation we are now is the rich people get it richer, the poor poorer, and the whole structure need to be completely changed, because the Jubilee deal with the Israelites, right? They left Egypt and they're about to enter into the so-called promised land. But then God knows ahead of time something will happen. Even they are so-called, God's people, but they will corrupt just like the Egyptians. So for that reason, God issued the principle of Jubilee, right? If you go back to your Bible, you know what is Jubilee. Jubilee means every 50 years, there's a cycle, right? When the cycle takes place, everyone will go back to their you know, I mean, everyone start the same. So, for example, when I first got my land, right? Eventually, if I'm not hardworking, if I'm not smart enough, I may end up, short of income, and so I have to sell my land. Even to a point, I have to sell myself, to be able to survive. So how can I restart Jubilee? Because every fifth year, when the Jubilee year comes, and that's the 50th year, and then I will get back all my land. You see, without a land, I cannot grow my own food. See, when you talk about, food and, homeless, hunger and homeless, we should go back to Jubilee principle, right? Without the land, I cannot grow my own food. I cannot have my own house. See, we have to go. You see, this is important. That's why for the past 10 years, we've been preaching about Jubilee, even to Christians, even to modern churches. They lost that vision. They lost their voice so that they cannot guide the whole world. For that reason, we have to rely on the political structure, I mean, whoever, right? But this is wrong. Everyone has to understand the God's design, right? Jubilee, that's the principle. We got, at a certain point, we got to stop this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we don't want to get into any sort of these too in depth with these messages, but I maybe thank you for your comments and words, Aubrey. Maybe I see also here Bruce Merlo has joined us. But I'd like to ask if Richard could just say a few words for a couple minutes. The first question, which was, why do you have an interest in the issues of homelessness in relation to the other topics of discussion today? So if Richard could unmute himself and perhaps say a few words. If he can find himself, his way to unmute.
Yeah.
If not, then perhaps hear from Bruce. Or maybe we'll circle back around to Salim. Okay, it looks like Bruce has been able to unmute himself.
Bruce, mic is open.
Seems that Bruce doesn't have the best connection. Unfortunately.
Then
the technology's advancing, but it's not getting there yet.
I haven't finished because that's just the beginning, and then
well, we actually have about. I mean, we had 8 questions originally. I just asked the first one.
Okay.
So, chances for people to speak. Of course, we're about 1 hour in. We've scheduled 2 hours for this whole sort of webinar today. Actually, maybe what I can do is go on to the next question, which was also answered actually by many people during that first question. But could you explain to us what you've been doing or what you have done in areas of homelessness and these related issues already? So if you have anything or any ideas for moving forward on this realm. So actually, I don't have any way to see if somebody's putting their sorry, I don't have any way of seeing if people are putting their hand up or anything. So I don't know.
I'm back. I'm sorry, I was kind of
Oh, good.
took.
There's Richard. Okay, so we'll have Richard give us an introduction on what he's been doing.
Well,
There he
yeah.
is.
Hello. Yeah, I'm visible. You can hear me?
Yeah, good stuff.
Now I've downloaded WebEx. Like everyone, right, to get on this call. Lots of video conferencing software out there now, right? It's so important. So yeah, we're really interested, of course, for all this collaboration that we see happening, and you know, as I'm sure Aubrey was explaining, you know, the PyroPod and all the pod, you know, pod solutions and are a way that we would hope to bring more capacity for food sovereignty to every community, backyards even, schoolyards in the community, farmers, and so. But we are in a stage of proof of concept, meaning we need the people that like innovation. You know, they're not going to you know kind of step back from being the pioneers. You know, because it always takes pioneers to move a new innovation and technology forward. And so we're always looking for the people who would like to engage. And you know what we're asking for, of course, is learning by doing, which is taking action. And you know, when it comes to innovation, the only way to get your hands on it is to build it yourself. I mean, you know, you can also watch. You know, we're going to have teams, and when we share openly, and you know, the solar roof inventions, which are my patents, six patents that issued Canada, U.S., international, are dedicated to a Creative Commons license for creating a community of people who will adopt and adapt the technology with a principle of sharing and learning with each other and from each other. And so, you know, we're looking for those projects that can be the pioneering projects and proof of concept phase that we need to go through. So, you know, we do have several of our teams. So Aubrey and I tomorrow, you know, we'll be on a live project development planning, all kind of technical, and
Yes.
that's tomorrow. And tomorrow morning, I guess it's morning in Pacific time. So you know, I'm sorry I wasn't in on the earlier conversation, so I'm not sure exactly what I should you know, add to the conversation and bring
I haven't shared
Yeah.
anything.
Well, what we're trying to do is answer a series of questions that were actually, as I had mentioned earlier, we did this event actually in Prince Edward County earlier this year, about a month ago or so, and we asked a series of questions related to hunger and homelessness. Now we've expanded that to hunger, homelessness, and health, SDG 1, 2, and 3. And how we can address that through food, specifically through this paradigm shift in the creation of local food at the local level in our communities, in support of what we're trying to do here in Markham through achieving drawdown at the local level, implementation of drawdown solutions, but also implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals for every community, for every person. So the series of questions, we're trying to think about the questions and answer the questions that are being asked on what is our role relative to what others are doing as well. So I'd actually maybe like to go on to the third question with regards to what you've already heard today, and given what I have discussed actually in the introduction, which I guess not everybody has heard, was that what do you believe are some of the more important issues related to homelessness, especially, that will need to be addressed in the short and long terms in your own communities or globally? But again, coming back to the local community efforts and how we can work forward. From your own perspective, what do you think are those things that need to be done? So I think again, we'll do it round robin and see if we can perhaps start with Ed even.
Okay.
So if you could mute yourself, Aubrey and Richard as well.
So we are now at number 3. Okay. Okay. One thing we noticed, the problem with the homeless is many of them have stopped dreaming. They feel hopeless. They don't hope anymore. They don't plan anymore. They don't have dreams anymore about the future. Partly it's because if they are surrounded by people who give them food, they become too reliant on these things. When a person is new to being homeless, he is still dreaming. He wants to return to his normal life. But over time, especially if he has been on the street for over a year, the street becomes his comfort zone. In what sense that it is his comfort zone? He sleeps there, worry about any bills to pay, doesn't worry about any expenses. He wakes up in the morning, he knows where he can go to eat free of charge. He knows the schedule of the feeding program all around. So over time, he becomes used to this kind of life, and he doesn't worry about anything at all. This is something which we need to change. This is something which they need help to change, because otherwise we cannot solve their problem. And it's a big challenge because we can only do that if we get to know them. We need to interact with them personally, which is difficult in many cases because there are different reasons for their being homeless. Some were born that way. Some became poor over time because of a business failure or because they lost their job. Some became homeless because they committed a crime and they have to run away from their community where they are no longer accepted even after they have spent time in jail. Some became homeless because they were rejected by their family because of their sexual orientation. So once this hopelessness sets in, it's very difficult to recover. And we don't have the answers to this. We are still going through the process of learning how. And I think it's something that I'm not sure, but maybe it exists also in other places. And as I've said, it has become a cycle. From one generation to the next, the homelessness becomes a cycle. A couple gets married or they just go live together, have some children, the children become homeless, and it repeats. And I think this is where government and private sector has to come in. Without teamwork, without cooperation, this problem is very difficult to solve. The tendency of the government or most of the private people is to provide food, regular hot meals, but it does not really solve the problem. In fact, it creates this dependence, too much dependence on the giving thing. So it's a challenge really on how we can help these people start to dream again, to pursue their ambition in life before they become homeless, to stand on their own feet and not to be totally dependent on dole outs and food giving. So that is what we see right now.
Yeah, thank you, Ed, very much for your comments, because I think that's really relevant, actually, also to sort of the situation in Africa and how Africa has been treated for so many decades, where there's been a handout mentality created, and I think that it is the same in so many communities in so many countries as well, even here. So I think that issue around hope for their own future, for the future of themselves, their family, and what they can achieve, is really where we need to bring conversation. And I'm hoping to work with everybody that's on this call eventually to make that, to help to bring hope to the that may otherwise not have that hope. So I'd like to move forward and actually have comments from Miriam, if possible. Miriam?
Comes up in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah. So Mary, you wanted to say something first? You're muted.
Oh, I was said I'll wait. No worries, I'll wait.
Okay.
That was a good show.
So it sounds like it seems like Salim actually may be unmuted and possibly here to introduce himself as well. Or not. Okay. Miriam, did you want to say a few things on this subject?
Yes, sure. I'm listening your question. Yes, the situation is here almost same. We spent 2, 3, 4 years with the refugees and gypsies here in Pakistan with the project, in which I totally agree with few of the experts in this conversation. Yes, if they become hopeless once, then this hopeless removal is really difficult from their lives. But if we give them some, such kind of programs or awareness, or some, engage them in some, different activities in which they can learn something in terms of, not only in terms of learning, or they kept themselves busy, in different programs, so they can, earn some money, they can save some money, and they can settle their lives on a specific target, not like a regular homes, abruptly, but they can slowly and gradually can change their lifestyle. And we experience here in Pakistan, in few of places, that these refugees are living with the same conditions from so many years. But when we enter in with the agenda to give something to them in terms of education, in terms of awareness, in terms of capacity building on different components, and then slowly and gradually they turned towards our programs, and they learn many things, and then slowly and gradually they change their lifestyle. And from these homeless peoples, no, mostly people are living on the same place but on a set home, like with the covered with the bricks and all these things, and they are spending their regular life, not like a very lavish life, but they are spending a good life over there. So I totally agree. If we give them hope, if we give them directions, if we give them some innovations, I think so they can change their routine life, and they ultimately change their lifestyle also. So this is the basically the SDGs impact also, that to create some actions for them, and with this action we can change their lives. So I think so this is possible, and practically I have this experience here in Pakistan also, that people if we give some positive directions to them, then definitely they will change themselves.
This is actually why I am hoping to include some voices from people in other countries as well, because I think we have a dominance of people here in North America. So I see Ed wants to say a few more words, and so if he could unmute himself.
Yes, I just like to add something, because we have seen some groups in the past who gave houses to the homeless, but it was a failure, because unless we change that mindset of total dependence on others, they will just leave their home or sell it.
Yes, you are right.
And go back to the streets. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So to solve the homeless problem, it's not enough to give them a house. We have to start with the mindset to make them dream again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's a really important point, and people, especially like Andre, who would like to address some of the local issues as well here in Canada, in the Toronto area. It's something to really keep in mind, and we can learn from people who have much more experience and are much closer to these issues. I'm hoping still to hear from Salim at some point, but perhaps somebody else would want to raise their hand and also say a few things.
I guess just a few words. There's a stigma, at least in North America, with homelessness, that these people have mental illnesses, that they're very lazy, that's why they can't get a job, and that's why they're homeless. But that's not really the case. Sometimes there's just a bad situation. They went through a divorce, they lost their job, and they just haven't been able to make a rent payment or payment, and they don't have a place to stay. And then sometimes the drug use and the mental illness that comes along is because they are actually homeless, because they're on the street, they're in a certain mindset where they're in survival, can't think or plan for, they are thinking about surviving till the next day. So you can't expect them in that state to say, I want to plan for a future, I want to have hope. Well, they're just saying, I just need to survive till the next day. It's a different mindset. And there's a program that says it's housing first, that first you house them and then you provide support to them. I think it's a great idea that you have to start from some kind of housing. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a fancy housing, but something that's stable where they can, relax and start thinking about the future, where you can provide certain types of supports, such as education, where they can start learning and start processing that, and not have to worry about where their next meal is, where they're, where they're going to sleep. Are they going to be safe from other people? Are they going to be safe from the elements? So it starts with some kind of a shelter where they feel safe and secure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So actually, I think this segues well into maybe getting a few comments from Richard on what he's doing and his shelter solutions, I think, which are very, very important to this conversation. What he has developed over so many decades is something that I think has important relevance to this conversation in terms of achieving what you had just mentioned, Andre. So, Richard?
Yes, I would like to give some feedback to the comments we've just had, which are very practical, yes, on the ground experience with the homeless, with the refugees. So I think this is, most valuable. So I do see, I think, like the people here have just said, that education is a key. What we need in terms of education is education that is more vocational, education that is more about skills, which we can bring to these people that are disadvantaged. If we can create the circumstance where these people who have become homeless, they may be refugees, so they have no means, to look after themselves. And so, we're interested in shelter, concept of shelter, which is more, is more productive. When we think of a shelter, it's a place to stay, but it doesn't provide us with any of the essentials. So we want to focus on what we call the few essentials, FEW. So that stands for food, energy, and water. And if you have these few essentials, then even if you're a refugee, you can have a life of dignity. And UN Habitat did surveys of refugees around the world, and they said that the key word for all refugees is that their life has dignity. When you're dependent on others and you always have your hand out and you have the insecurity, right, that food might not be there for you. It might not, because you are very dependent. And when we have such a vast number of people now, so more and more, I mean, the population of refugees and people without any means, to feed themselves has doubled recently, relatively recently. It's 150 million now. Some of these, UN goals, right? The UN goals have now switched, reverse direction. They could say progress was being made, but now, the system seems to be overwhelmed. And so what are the responses that we have to homelessness is that we tend to only we want to care for these people, look after their needs, but the emphasis is not on a capacity of these displaced people to look after themselves. And that, I think, is the key. Now, for them to do that, certainly they need physical resource, and they need education. They need skills, and if they have these skills and learn these skills as a result of being homeless, in order that they would be able to have more security, certainly that could also be vocational. They could take those skills forward in their life, and they could be farmers, they could be food producers, they could know about solar energy, and they would be able to understand more about sustainable technologies and ways of living. So, most people, before they become homeless, are not sustainably living. Most of us, I would include myself, in a suburban environment, I've pumped the gas and, fill up the gas tank every week or whatever. Not so much in pandemic, but, beforehand, or, all the traveling we're doing. Now, we're not really living a very sustainable life. When we become displaced, let's say, and even people who are wealthy or well off can be displaced and can become refugees. We saw tens of thousands of people leave New Orleans after Katrina. They were displaced for years, and some never returned. So, every community can experience this kind of becoming a climate refugee. So we're going to have this sort of thing: seawater, ocean inundation in the low-lying coastal cities. And we know, and look at Pakistan even now. is you know, having tremendous issues with that. So if we can create situation for all of these millions of people to engage in their own life, that is hope, right? That's active hope. That's actually recovering their own sense of you know, responsibility for their lives instead of
Mm-hmm.
being on others.
Yeah.
So yeah, our innovations are targeted for that, right? For enabling. Instead of providing food, let people grow the food, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, you then need a capital expenditure, mostly when it comes to uh, support for homeless and poor people. You know, I think it's an equivalency there. If you're homeless, you're certainly poor, and if you're hungry, well, that's the most degree, right, of poverty as well. So
Mm-hmm.
definition, if you have your few essentials in your life, you are not poor. You know, you have that. So what does it take to get that? You can either deliver the food to people who have no food, or deliver a system, they grow their own food. And if you account for the expenditure during 1 year, if you can supply the capital investment for these people to grow their own food and educate them, of course, to use this technology, grow their food, then, you know, that's a very fast return. And it means that those people are discharged from this extreme poverty situation, right? They've
Mm-hmm.
acquired necessary, not only knowledge, but application. They learn to apply that knowledge. They are growing their own food, and they can teach others. As their life improves, they can propagate that. They can teach the next one, each one teach one. And so long as our solutions are simple, right? If solutions are only for the elite and require massive investment, then that is not a global solution. That is a solution for particular situation where it's do we reach out to save a few of the hungry or all of the hungry,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we're if we're expending our resources on what would be elite, you know, for few and for an elite few, or, you know, to help those who for some reason have access, you know, to more, you know, resources, that is not a solution. That can make some people feel better. And I think, you know, in the West, we have to watch out for that, that we're extending a hand to just a few, you know, and we feel better, you know. But if we're only providing consumables, obviously that is not enduring, right? That is
Mm-hmm.
just relief. So yeah.
Okay,
So
thank you, Richard. We're gonna go on. I see Ganga from Nepal has now joined us, and I'm hoping that she can give her introduction as well.
Hello, good evening. Here is midnight. It is 12:30 a.m. Namaste. I slept and I woke up again just to join this webinar, and I'm feeling I'm very happy and lucky to join here. And I'm Ganga Lasmi Awal, and I'm the president of National Federation of Women Farmers. Exactly, the Mr. Richard was speaking. We have been doing here sustainable agriculture for food security since 1990s in high mountain area, high altitude area, and we have been using various appropriate technologies, and we have what's going on. We have been using appropriate technologies mixed up with the local traditional knowledge, and we mix with the modern technologies so that it is sustainable and without harming the environment. So we don't use modern sophisticated technologies, We just mix up traditional knowledge with the sustainable technology, such as rainwater harvesting for irrigation purpose, and solar pumps, and various traditional as well as new modern technologies to grow our food. And we have been growing our food. We have 3,400 women members growing their own food. And in this pandemic, we are very much affected with, and the farmers, we have been growing our food, but we are hungry now. We don't have food, although we have been growing because of the pandemic. And it was begins in 9 months ago. We could not harvest our wheat at that time. But now it's time to harvest paddy here. We could not market. We could not go to the machine to make it rice, to husk it, and we cannot sell. We cannot go to big, due to the government policy on marketing. Big departmental stores, they are open for market, but small farmers like us, SMEs, we call small farmers, they don't have transport facility to sell our product. We don't have vehicles, and we don't have proper paid. It is very pity to share that we cannot fix our product price. Always someone else, the middleman, fix our product price. So we are not getting proper price. At the same time, the consumer are paying high price for our product. So there is a big gap in value chain marketing. And there are other, the most important is high rise in violence, rape cases in quarantine. Even in shelter, women are raped. Even about 22, I have just recorded yesterday, 22 girls have been raped during the pandemic in Nepal in quarantine while they are tracing for COVID cases. And also due to lack of safe delivery of new baby, 51 new mothers have lost their lives because hospitals are not admitting pregnant women for delivery because of high risk of coronavirus, and most of the pregnant women are affected with this coronavirus. And also domestic violence has been raised. 730 women have been injured seriously due to the domestic violence. And women are not safe even at their home and outside home. At their home also there are violence. And in province 1, when we were doing webinar last month, I shared with Lloyd about we were listening stories from all over Nepal, what women have been experiences due to the COVID-19. One pregnant woman, she committed suicide due to hunger. She could not have rice. She wanted to have rice. Due to her husband lost his job and they didn't have food, so she committed suicide. And 48% women are victim in Nepal. And also the frontliners, about 70% frontliners are women, like health worker, nurses, social workers, and women are the most affected. This is how. And farmers, they affected. They lost their product. They lost their market, and their food is not properly stored. We don't have cold storage like that, so they cannot sell and they cannot eat it. Now it is damaged. Their rice has been damaged. They cannot eat their food. So this is how they became the farmers who grow food for others. They themselves have hunger now. And second, the women unemployment, 66.5% women have been involved in informal and unorganized sectors, such as cleaning, small industries, domestic works, and they don't have social securities and insurance facilities, pensions, and they were paid only 70% in comparison to men workers. Even small little amount earning women, they lost their job. 70% women workers lost their job, and it is really threatening now due to the COVID. So I have pointed out number third is about women and security. Women, we don't have security in terms of job, in terms of health, in terms of employment, in terms of pensions, and now the way forward. So what we should be doing, and all the activities of. Sorry, may I
No,
continue?
yes, May. I just wanted to. I mean, there are so many problems, so many issues. I think we need to focus on sort of where we are. But I would like to focus sort of the last session because we have about 20 minutes or so left to have our discussions here. So I take questions, but I want to start having sort of more of a discussion focused a little bit more on the solutions.
Yes.
For many of these problems. I think that's where we need to start having a discussion rather than sort of just rehashing the same problems. I think which are manifesting themselves around the world in communities everywhere. We need to start really having a conversation about what are the specific things that need to be. And also the sort of the second last question was, what are the metrics also that we are using to measure success? Well, whether it's relative to the current system, or how can the current system be improved or replaced? What does success look like for the people in this call? And maybe actually we can start with you, Ganga, and you can continue saying from your own perspective what you think success would look like.
Yeah, I think for success, the only one is I see let people grow their food themselves, at Richard mentioned, and we should not be waiting for other people to give food to us, or we should not be waiting for other people to provide something, and we have to try ourselves. That is number one. And the second, the metrics will be there must be proper plans and policies in each country, wherever it is. There are different plans, different policies, depends on the situation. I understand the situation is same in global in the world. So there must be proper policies to address these problems. Such as I see as a farmer, as a food grower, the only one solution is we have to design, or we have to work on various sustainable agriculture, climate smart agriculture systems. That is the vague solution, but we have to break it down in different metrics. So how we address like food, energy, environment, and women, and how can we make it sustainable without few years. Some countries may need funding, that is also essential. For example, government has not provided sufficient funding even for to check the PCR, the test of COVID also. Here in Nepal, government has already gave up Government said that you have to pay for checkup, you have to have your own medicine, people have to pay, and you have to manage your dead bodies yourself. So government is not going to do that, and people are protesting against it. If you are not caring about your people, the people are not obliged to pay tax to the government. So this is
Mhm.
how the pandemic is making even worse. So in this worse situation, as a global team, we have to raise voices. It's your rights to look after your people. The country has their own responsibilities, and same as also there is a constitution that every people will get food and health facilities in the country's constitution, but that this is not applying, this is not implementing the countries. So we have to have education about what is their rights, and
Mhm.
proper policies to implement, so that people are secure. They get food, they get medicine, they get health services, like that. One can be awareness. Maybe people are not aware about their rights, like
Mhm.
developing countries, like in Nepal and many South Asian countries and other developing countries.
Yeah.
No, they're not aware about what is their rights. And
Yeah, I think this actually circles back to conversations that we within the ad hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors as well, that even people like Andrew may be able to shed light on in terms of the process of education when we do, as Richard had talked about, education and training being so important. But we're also focusing on things on subjects like human rights as well,
yes,
educating on human rights. And
yes,
I
human
wish
rights is,
actually that our associate Mufadal Mirza was on this call as well. His sort of wraparound integrated solution to create these farm schools in communities around the world is actually focused very much on educating, in particular, women um,
yes,
to become entrepreneurs, and this idea of humanitarian entrepreneurship, where we focus on those populations that have that ability to create that new paradigm where they're talking about build back better. And I think, Richard, you wanted to say a few words.
I just like
thank you.
to especially comment about the circumstances of farmers around the world. And, you know, we are all enlisted in a program that is a global program of grain production. You have your rice, we have wheat, and we have also the corn and maize production around the world. These kind of crops produce about less than a pound, sometimes as little as you know um, a tenth of a pound per square foot. So that'd be like per square meter. That would be about a half a kilogram. In other words, what I'm saying is that grain production is not producing very much food. And it requires inputs, often mechanization or quite a bit of labor, right? Or mechanization and all kinds of fertilizer and petrochemical chemical inputs to grow these crops. So in the old days, a farm family used to have their own garden and they would have food for the family, and then they would grow these commodity crops. So these commodity crops now dominate. People have left their sort of their skills behind, and a lot of times too, local food was a permaculture in the
Yes,
surrounding you know, in
Yes,
this.
we have been doing.
And
Yeah,
those
but
crops, yeah, the natural, the natural ecology around is also being destroyed. So indigenous people in America, for example, in North America, they were self-sufficient, but now the habitat for all the wild species and all of the those original natural food, food supply, those habitats were destroyed. How were they destroyed? Mostly because of deforestation and focus on grain. And, the UN and others are always in the UN development program, have massive programs for fertilizer and for development of larger and larger field production, and so the small farmer is also excluded. So what we need to do is realize that this commodity wealth does not represent true wealth. It's something that we're conditioned to think if we have this commodity wealth, we can sell it for hard currency. So we think, well, then we've got some money that we can do things with, maybe education, getting other kind of, where you have to trade, you want a hard currency. But the point is that all of this global trend line, right, which is continuing, and it's going towards what? Where do we extrapolate it going to? Because the oil on which these crops are grown is actually running out. There's only 10 to 20 years, and we won't have the fertilizers, artificial, synthetic fertilizer, other inputs. So could we not come back to real food for families? So, whether it's tubers or leaf or stem or fruit or all kinds of food that we grow for our own community and create, even if it requires community currency, you have thousands of women in your network. They could create a community currency, and with a focus on growing real food for families, not a commodity to sell. Your everyone would be healthier, everyone would be more secure, and we can grow this kind of food, this real food. We can grow it in a relatively small space with modern 21st century, but also appropriate know-how. So technology that enables the family farm, the individual family, to have an abundance of healthy food, at least, and then if the commodity that you're growing is has a crop failure, it doesn't mean you're hungry. Over time, we could maybe abandon some of the emphasis on these commodities and bring back indigenous plants and restore a natural, ecology. And so this is, I believe, the path, to a true sustainability. It is not one that is supported by UN development programs or educational, universities for the most part. But we can influence this, and people will listen, and especially if we show it's working. So this is where we do our proof of concepts. We're going to be building, the Pyropod 8, which is something that you could build in Nepal. And of course, in mountainous countries and places where, extensive land and normal agriculture is not that easy actually to do, then what we're doing is even, I would say, maybe more adaptable by your communities. So I think it would be wonderful to share, and that's also our value, right? Is to share the know-how. So whatever this food growing is that can support family farms, it's the same everywhere. Every family farm is caught in this commodity, trap in a way, this economic, system that's not working for most people. And indeed, it's not delivering enough food for the world. and certainly not enough good food that's truly nutritious, right? That is the problem as well.
Yeah, thank you, Richard, for mentioning that as well, because this webinar is also, as had been actually added yesterday. And I think that it's really important that we actually focus on that as sort of, especially in the paradigm we're in right now, where almost all the conversations are about health because of this pandemic that we're going through right now. Everybody's mind, well, how do I stay healthy? But food is this very, very important part of that conversation, and it contributes to our own well-being in terms of our, even if we do get sick with this virus, to overcome this and build our own immune system. So I think that's a very important aspect of why we're here. So I see we only actually have about 5 minutes or so. I'm not sure if we can go a little bit over time on this, but actually I would like to also hear from Miriam again, as well as we have a new person that's come on the line. I'm not even sure how to pronounce that name, Mr. or Ms. Otupe who has come on the line, and perhaps they could unmute themselves and provide us with an introduction. If you can find the unmute button on your screen. If not, we could move on, and I'd like to hear from Miriam one more time, and then maybe one more time from Ed.
Thank you so much, and this was very productive discussion from everyone. Yes, we can, when we close this session, and from this session, I got 3 major things today in today's session, that we focused more about vocational, like one of our experts quote this, we're more about technical and we're more about vocational with our communities, because it's the way to make them more productive for their self and for their communities, number one. And number two, we more focused about the growing of the food by their own self. Because if we only give them food, it's a timely solution for them. But if we give them learning to grow food, I think so. It's a very, very tangible way to make them developed, and they can, sustainable. Like we talk about the sustainability all the time. So this is the way we can make them sustainable. Third thing, which I think so, we are also going to focus in this COVID-19. That, and I think so. This is the great positivity from our side also. We created hope in throughout our working area. We collect people when they're sitting at home, they are facing lockdown, and they are facing so much difficult time for them. So we caught them and we gave them hopes. We gave them programs at their homes. We created virtual learning for them, especially with the women, and we always try to keep ourselves connected with them. So with the same homeless people, if we create some sort of programs like through the services which they don't have in their areas, so through these services they can connect with each other, they can connect with other communities, they can connect with the organizations from where they can learn little bit about the regular life, and how can they make their regular life more sustainable, more active, and more productive for them. So I think so this is a very useful sessions today, because everyone is expert and everyone is heading their institutions and organizations. So this is the very, very fruitful directions for us also, that how can we, we don't make them habitual to all the time giving ready-made things to them, and in terms of saying that we are helping them. Yes, we are helping them, but we are trying to make them entrepreneurs as well. So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. So maybe I could get the last word from Ed as well.
Okay. Me add a little bit to what Ganga has mentioned. She mentioned farmers, middleman, and then the final seller. I would like to share what an NGO here in the Philippines did. This NGO is called Gawad Kalinga, which in English it just means to give care. And this NGO started to work with farmers in one of the farms. They introduced good farming methods. And I think one of the greatest success they have is to eliminate the middleman. As a bridge, this NGO connected the farmers directly to the supermarket chain. So today, this farm is selling directly to a big supermarket chain, increasing the profits of the farmers, improving their lives quite a lot. So maybe the idea here is to get the trust of the supermarkets. Normally, supermarket chains don't trust farmers if they work individually, but if they were grouped together and represented by an NGO or an organization that is respected, then the middleman can be eliminated and the lives of the farmers can be uplifted quite a lot. Now, going back to what you mentioned about metrics, here what we have observed is we cannot go directly to housing. Usually from the homeless, we go to livelihood, and eventually they can afford to rent a room or a house, and maybe eventually have their own house. What we have seen is livelihood, they start as scavengers, and that is where we can help. Many of them have skills, and many of them have educational background, and they need help to apply and get a job, usually in construction companies or in restaurants as waiters or whatever, where their skills can be applied. Some of them, they want to be entrepreneurs, so they want to set up small businesses. And we have quite a few successes in this. We have some put up a food stall where they cook because they have cooking skills, and then they sell food. I think that's one area where an NGO or the government can help, providing funding to start small businesses so that these people can stand on their own feet. For example, one guy here, he managed to save quite a lot from his scavenging job, and he's now selling bottled waters and consumer goods on the street, on the sidewalk. It's not much, but he's earning a lot more than the scavenging. So yeah, it's not maybe the success we want, but from their standpoint, it's a big thing already. And I think we can do more by helping them grow from that stage by stage. It's not a fast thing. It's not a quick thing to do until they reach a stage where they rent a house or a room or eventually own a house. I think that's the reality. That's the process they have to go through. And it will only happen once they start to dream. As long as they feel comfortable on the streets, they will not dream. They will not start thinking about owning a job or having a small business. That's all I have for now. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, Lloyd, are you there?
Hello.
Well, in the meantime, if there's anyone that has not yet spoken, I'm not sure if either Bruce Burlow or Celine Talbot can unmute yourselves, but if you can, now would be that time. Also, I believe we can save the chat when you leave, but I will copy the chat and send it to everyone, or send it to Lloyd. He'll make sure everyone gets it.
Come to our live session tomorrow. Teach people, show people what we are doing. I think we talk too much. We need to do something. Yeah, we need to even show people how to do DIY. So this is DIY, both DIY and also entrepreneur, event. So combine both together.
Okay, Robert, what time are you getting started tomorrow?
We start at 9 Pacific Standard Time. That would be, you just figure out what's the time for your local area.
Okay.
And I will send that along as well. I did see that email from Aubrey came into my inbox, and I can share it with all the participants here, so they can also get involved in Aubrey's event, which is tomorrow. But we will continue this conversation. It's good to know, and the reason we is to know who has the strong interest in these sort of issues and that we are trying to address. And I know that it seems like Bruce is maybe trying to say something. It's not coming through quite well.
Hi.
I think we should probably be considered closing up with this session today, but we will continue for sure to have an ongoing conversation. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. Yes, that's Bruce.
Yeah. No, I've been following the meeting for an hour. I'm involved, like on the local level, with umbrella organizations that deal with CSAs, food sovereignty, social housing. I'm personally involved in redesigning an old industrial neighborhood, which is one of the last pieces of land in Verdun that can be developed. So we're trying to have a relationship with the city and get it done by participatory democracy. Yeah, I'm more involved at a political level, like being nonpartisan but political. Yeah, it's really interesting what everybody's doing in that, and I'll stay connected, and it's important that we share. Like everybody's successes, and so we could do more of what works and less of what doesn't. Okay.
Okay, Lloyd, is that a wrap? Lloyd Helferty. Perhaps you can unmute yourself. Well, if not, then gentlemen and ladies, I'm going to end this call and conversation. And I'll make sure that Lloyd gets a copy of the recording.
Okay, nice meeting you. Ed.
Bye.
Yeah, Miriam, Ganga. Yeah, come to tomorrow's meeting. Yeah.
I would like to join. Thank you.
Very sorry. My computer just froze there for about a minute and a half or so, and I was trying to unmute myself. But I will follow up and keep everybody abreast of what's happening. Thank you all.
Okay, we'll see how my system tomorrow.
Have a great day.
Yeah.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
No, okay. Okay, I'm winding up now. Okay, so let me do this first.
Thank you, Andrew.
You're very welcome. That was a phone call from Salim Talbot. He wanted to apologize. He was hearing us, but he couldn't speak. So I'm going to end the meeting now. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.